The Senate Judiciary Committee is expected to vote on legislation to set up a formal code of conduct for the Supreme Court next week.
This comes in the wake of new reports raising questions about the ethics of two justices within the nation's highest court. According to The Guardian, several lawyers who had business before the Supreme Court issued, get this, Venmo payments to a former top aide of Justice Thomas.
That's right. And meanwhile, the Associated Press reports that Justice Sotomayor's staff urged public institutions hosting her to purchase her books. The Supreme Court issued a rare statement in response to all of this. In part, it reads that justices are encouraged to engage with the public through activities that include writing, and they routinely speak at educational institutions across the country.
Well, joining us now is David Ohlin. He is a dean and a professor at Cornell Law School. Good to have you with us, Jens. So the Supreme Court statement in response to the report on Justice Sotomayor references a, quote, judicial code of ethics. I think a lot of people are just wondering right now, what does that code say exactly?
It's a pretty loose document, and it's, mostly just an advisory document that gives some, broad outlines to the justices about what they should and shouldn't be doing. But it doesn't really have the teeth that you would, associate with a binding code of conduct for judges. And that does exist, but it only exists for lower court judges. So district judges, appellate judges have this, really robust code of conduct. But it's, totally different for Supreme Court judges. They have their own code, which is much looser.
I guess what we're all realizing or wondering now is why shouldn't they be able to abide by the same ethical code of conduct that those at the lower levels do already? Because these questions these questions are being levied against justices of kind of both or across the spectrum ideologically. What do you make of this bill being pushed by Senate Democrats? Even if it has no chance of passing, might it lead to an ultimate change?
It's an interesting question because it's conceptually clearly the right approach to have one code of conduct for everyone and to make Supreme Court justices subject to the same rules that lower court judges have to abide by. But the question is, how do we get from A to Z on this issue? Even if the bill had a chance of passing, which I don't think it does, there would be a really complicated legal dispute down the road about whether or not it's constitutional, because there's a view that the Supreme Court, really has to come up with its own ethics rules. I'm not sure that everyone agrees with this point, but since it's an independent branch of government recognized by the Constitution, they get to say what the law is. There's a separation of powers argument that, you can't have Congress telling the Supreme Court what ethics rules are going to be, binding the Supreme Court. So that's certainly the view of some members of the Supreme Court, that they should decide this for themselves. But the problem is they haven't really taken the mantle and, created a robust ethics regime for themselves. And since they haven't done that, and Congress has asked them, I think, for years to do that, the ball is now in Congress's court, and they've certainly seized, I think, the political momentum by introducing this bill in Congress.
Yeah, but I want to follow up on this because while the Constitution has a separation of powers, it also has checks and balances. The Supreme Court presides over the law of the land and also checks the other two branches of government. And so unfortunately, I think the bigger issue is about politics right now. And Republicans, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, have really come out against the Supreme Court ethics bill. So if it fails to become law, what can be done to hold Supreme Court justices accountable so that we don't have even questions about ethical misconduct?
Well, I think there has to be an internal conversation at the Supreme Court, and we really don't know what's happening behind closed doors. I mean, it's clearly a collegial court. It's justices who have very close relationships and need to get along with each other. But there needs to be a movement, by judges on the Supreme Court who are unhappy with the current situation to sort of press their colleagues for movement on this issue. And I think if that happens, then that'll finally sort of, unstick the roadblock here. From my perspective, this should be a bipartisan issue. I mean, this should be an issue that Democrats and Republicans agree on, liberals on the Supreme Court, conservatives on the Supreme Court. They should all agree that ethics reform is a priority, because lack of ethics reform really harms the institutional legitimacy of the court. And if the court is diminished in the public's eyes, that's not good for anyone. That's not good for Republicans, not good for Democrats. It's not good for liberals, and it's also not good for conservatives, who right now are using the Supreme Court to really advance a lot of agenda items. And if that's not respected by the public, that harms conservatives as well.
Yeah, it harms democracy overall. All right, Jens David Ohlin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.